diverse set offices, but more importantly, industrial activities, sites, and we're growing the commercial relationship between the countries. We are happy to be in a place where we're close to $2 billion of products that are procured every year by the French aerospace and defense industry from India, and that's growing at a fast pace. Of course, being also the CEO of Airbus, I can tell you that a significant share of it is with Airbus, but actually that's much broader, and that's what we like with that situation, is that it is something that is happening not only with large groups, large OEMs, but more and more deep into the layers of the medium-sized and smaller companies. And that's really what we are looking for. So the success of this week will be visible over years, over the contacts, the new business opportunities that will be created. Today, here in Delhi, we have a sort of industrial speed dating. So we are organizing meetings between French and Indian companies, and more than 400 meetings have been set up for today between the two sides of the industry, between Indian companies and French companies. That's basically a good starting point for the week and shows the willingness to cooperate and work together. We had a kick-off session earlier today where we had the pleasure to welcome Indian officials from the civil and the military side, from space with the chairman of ISRO as well, and everybody recognized the unique relationship and partnership that exists between France and India, but also the common vision and the reason why this partnership is so efficient and also full of future. The way we are looking at our relationship with our Indian partners is really across the board, trying to contribute to the whole ecosystem. Of course, with manufacturing of parts, equipment, with assembly of systems, of planes, helicopters, be them civil or military, with engineering, and India is indeed a growing place for our engineering talents. Maybe I should have said that the GIFAS companies are already employing 17,000 people themselves here in India, and that's growing at a fast pace. So we're also a significant employer here. So manufacturing, final assembly, engineering, training is a very important part of what we are doing. We like to share know-how, skills, competencies to train. That's something we have grown very significantly. And if I just speak about Airbus, there are plenty of other initiatives. We have 4 full flight simulators that we are operating here in Delhi. And we have also set up a joint venture with our friends from Air India with 10 more simulators that will be operated for the training of the Air India pilots. Dassault has initiatives as well in the field of training in smaller companies, as it was a week as well this morning. So training, and that's maybe the new frontier with the growth of the aerospace and defense activities, with more flights, more airplanes flying, more airports being open, the MRO, maintenance, repair and overhaul, which is also creating a large number of opportunities to get to train people on airplanes, on helicopters, on engines, and get to know and learn and maintain those products, repair those products, and therefore grow their level of competencies, know-how, and skills, and support the growth of the activity in India. India is the fastest growing aviation market in the world today. That's the place to be. The market, the number of aircraft flying is significant, but still far from the other large countries of the world, but the number of the speed of growth, the potential, the order book of Indian Airlines in the global order book are very significant, and they show the speed at which India is progressing. The Minister of Civil Aviation was reminding us this morning of the fact that the number of airports, commercial airports, have doubled in the last decade here in India, going from 75 to 150, if I recollect correctly. and that will be going sort of up to 350 or 400 before 2050. Basically, it makes more specific points on the way, but it shows the speed of growth and the appetite of the Indian market for mobility, for people traveling, and therefore the challenges and the opportunities. And we're here to address both sides of the equation and looking at how to find more collaborative ways of working together and creating that prosperity that aviation is proposing. Space is also an area of interest for our companies. We have companies that are at the forefront of innovation, of technologies in space. But we also see and admire the speed at which India is making progress and growing in the different fields of space, including human space flights on the agenda here in India. And it's something that is amazing. So we're also here to visit the space, the Indian space ecosystem, and see how to do more for each other and how to cooperate. So that's basically what I wanted to share in a nutshell, just checking my notes that I have not been too fast on one topic or the other. I can't resist sharing with you that GIFAS is also the organizer of the Paris Air Show every second year. The Paris Air Show is the largest aviation show in the world by far, more than twice the size of the second air show. So that shows the importance of the Paris Air Show. And we always like to invite everybody to come and visit us. 2023 was the air show after the pandemic. We had no show during 4 years. It was a great success, an amazing, popular success. And we're targeting a similar, even better Paris Air Show for 2025. So I will conclude my introduction and before giving the floor to my colleagues for a few words by inviting you to the Paris Air Show 2025. I will hand over to François and to Clémentine, and then we'll be happy to take your questions. François?
Yes, thank you, Guillaume. So I'm François Lehmann. I'm representing the GEAD. GEAD is a group within the big GIFAS, which is headed by Guillaume, in charge of the equipment. So all the equipment manufacturers are part of this group of companies. And a few key figures about our activity. Within we represent about 24 million euros within the 24 billion euros within the 70 billion euros that have been mentioned by Guillaume, and also representing more than 200 companies from the 482 which are in the GIFAS. For us, it's a unique opportunity to be here this week. I have personally been here 6 years ago. There was already a first visit with the GIFAS, and I must say that during this visit, I've been introduced to many companies in India, and we could have developed a lot of ties with Indian companies. So our expectation, of course, we know that India is a growing market. The best market today in our industry, and we are looking, of course, to work closely with Indian companies to be in front in our market and to be able to serve the huge ramp-up that we see in our industry. In our industry, in terms of civil market, of course, behind Airbus, who has been very successful in India, but also behind Dassault, who has sold the Rafale to the Indian Air Force. So for us, it's what we are looking is to have further ties with a lot of suppliers here. Not only to do simple things like machining, surface treatment, but really to increase the added value of the parts which can be supplied from India, and to transfer some knowledge also to India, and to buy complete equipments from the Indian supply chain. So these are a few words about the GEAD, which is representing the tier 1 suppliers to the big OEMs.
Okay, and let's talk about the small one, which are the SMEs, the small and medium-sized enterprise. I'm the representative of them. I'm also chief officer of my company. And just a few words, we have about 60 companies with us today, and most of them are small enterprise. And they point out a very enthusiastic wish to come. So when we launch the abroad or off-road foreign visit for the GIFAS, we had many countries on the table, and India showed a very great interest from a lot of members of the GIFAS. So it was a great enthusiasm for the company to come here today. And we have about 50 successful cooperation with India already, with smaller enterprise, which are growing very fast here in India with Indian companies, a joint venture, or even from scratch, which is quite a good success. And we also have in the space a good example of success also with companies merging their experience with some space company in India. So it's already ongoing, and it's already done. And now a lot of new companies are coming and wishing to do more here. So a great enthusiasm anyway, and we are happy to be here.
I read my notes and I have a few regrets of things I wanted to share. So before handing over, yes, one aspect that is at the front and center of what we are doing is decarbonization. And that's something that I see very much in common between France and India as well. In particular in the field of technologies and planes that are burning less fuel, but as well in the field of fuels themselves and in the field of sustainable aviation fuel. So that's something that is high on the agenda, and it's a fantastic place for potential cooperations, as we are almost starting from scratch. So when we look at the three main priorities of our industries and companies at the moment, this is the ramp-up, because we have a very high level of demand and challenged on the supply side. That's where our Indian partners could help and are very much welcome to bring their capacities, their know-how, their competitiveness to support the ramp-up. It's decarbonization for future products and future fuels. And that's, as we touched upon earlier, in the field of defense and space, where there is indeed in Europe a need for more sovereignty in the field of defense and space, and therefore more activity. Very similar to the situation in India, with also the wish, the target, the ambition to do more and to do it in a sovereign way. And this interesting combination that we see through the strategic partnership of being able to be more sovereign, each of us, by cooperating. And that's this interesting field of cooperation in sovereign domains, where we can bring to each other in such a way that makes both sides better reach their objectives. So I just wanted to say this. I wanted to say as well that, of course, companies are cooperating with each other. Of course, governments have put that frame of the strategic partnership since 1998, which is fueled on a regular basis by contacts at the top of state, invitation of President Macron inviting Prime Minister Modi for the National Day last year on the 14th of July, and then President Macron being invited here by PM Modi earlier this year. I think it was end of January for the Indian National Day. And that's also a way to foster the relationship between the countries. But we have a relationship now also established from association to association. And that's something we refueled this morning with an agreement, a strategic agreement, a framework agreement between FICI and GIFAS. But we're also
airplanes on order in the world. On the other side, there are airlines shutting down, some are in bad shape. So what are your views on the Indian market? How do you see it?
Indian market is booming, fueled by the growth of the population and the growth, the increase in wealth and access to flight, by the fact that new airports create new connections, but it's indeed a very competitive market. And the Indian airlines are actually competing fiercely for that market, so it's an overall growing one. There are challenges that come with growth, especially fast growth, but I think there can be no doubt on the fact that it's poised for success. For challenges, growing at that pace is not something that is easy, and we see ourselves, by the way, having a responsibility and an opportunity as well to contribute to making that growth a good one, safe from the standpoint of flight safety, but also competitive, so that the growth can be managed. But indeed, it's a competition, and it's a fierce competition. I see plenty of hands.
Good afternoon, Mr. George.
Yeah, I see plenty of hands, so the mic will come. I'm not in charge, they're in charge.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. George. This is Krishna Kaushik from Reuters. I wanted to ask, given that Airbus has orders worth over 1,200 aircraft in India, are you evaluating setting up a final assembly line in the country at any point?
So I'm not here as Airbus, I'm the head of GFAS, but I will not escape from your question. Actually, we are setting up a final assembly line here in India for the C295 in the frame of Make in India. That's something that we consider very important, with the full industrialization of the plane. So it's not just the final assembly line, it's the complete manufacturing of all the parts of the aircraft, and that keeps us very busy. In spite of this, we have also announced in the field of civil aviation our intention and the decision to place a final assembly line for the H125, that is the most successful civil helicopter that is existing today on the planet, that will be here in India with our partners from Tata, as you know. And other companies are also placing final assembly line for engines or for other planes, so that's really on the agenda. And there are other ideas in the field of regional aircraft where, let's put it this way, where the French ecosystem, the French companies will be very happy to engage and see how to do this. We like this model, but we do it where it makes sense, when it makes sense.
Neetu Matthews from Shepherd Media UK. I'm afraid I have to again ask you to put on your Airbus cap, and that is regarding the modification of the AWACS, of the A320 AWACS that are supposed to be done by Airbus. But the air chief just said it's been about 2 years and nothing has happened. So are there any constraints in that at all? Could it be the cost, etc.? And when are we expected to see the final clearance? And if I can bother you, sir, for another question. This is on the status of the Falcon 2000, which is in Mehan. Is Dassault planning to buy a stake in Reliance? Or is that too far away? Any more component manufacturers? I'm sure you know. Thank you.
And so I need to repeat that we hail as the association, and we cannot be making statements about individual companies, except when we are ourselves working for those companies. That's why I will also take your question on the AEWMC project. That is an Airbus one where Airbus is involved. And if you have plenty of questions about Airbus that I cannot answer today, as you know, we have on Thursday the inauguration of our headquarters in trying to de-risk the front, so when the project enters into its execution, it's on a sound basis. By the way, I believe that's where we stand on the C295. It was also a bit long to come to decision, but now it's in full swing and the execution is really running smoothly in spite of being a very large project. So for PwC, that's also where we stand. There are very active discussions, we're very engaged, and it took actually more time than was hoped for, maybe not expected, to get to conclusion on the technical and industrial setup that will lead to success. I think we're coming close, but it's not on me to comment. I believe it's on the Indian defense forces, Ministry of Defense to comment. I can just confirm that we're working actively to contribute to success.
Thank you.
And as for the second question, as I'm not a representative of Dassault, it's not possible for me to answer your question on this topic. Although I know, speaking about Dassault, that the supply chain is supporting Dassault also on the Rafale, especially setting up some capability in country, and this I can comment on this one. But on the Falcon 2000, I cannot comment.
Hello. Chairman, I have a question. How many MRO companies are accompanying you this time?
So how many?
MRO companies.
Plenty of companies have MRO activities actually. Do we have specialized MRO companies with us? Sure. Maybe can someone comment on this?
Yes, we do. I cannot give you the figure within the delegation, but yes, we have some like test benches, like directly involved only on drone activities. Can we get a list of that? Yeah, I can do it.
But we have plenty of companies who have, as part of their activities, MRO. That's the case for others. Manufacturers and also tier ones, tier twos, which are involved in the supply chain, are contributing to MRO. But that's something that is very broad in the portfolio of activities we're having at DIFAS. So we can be very happy.
Now, MRO, because we are supplying so many aircrafts, it needs to be serviced. So every airport.
We can't be doing everything. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Puri. This is Saurabh Sinha from Times of India. I have two key questions. One, China's got two FALs. We are okay with that. Have you got any outsourcing target for India right now? It's $2 billion, as you say. So do you see this growing? If yes, is there any target by? How do you see this 2 billion expanding, going further, given that Indigo is here, your biggest customer is here, plus you have other orders? There are other Indian airlines which want to place orders, but they don't have slots from Airbus because of it. They haven't been able to place orders. So there's a problem of plenty for Airbus in India. Then I'll ask one more question.
So I perceive many aspects in your question, so I'm trying to capture the essence. We're transitioning from a final assembly line setup that we had before COVID to a new final assembly line setup that will be mostly designed for the A320 family around the A321. That's something that we are in the phase of completing. But we have plenty of other needs. The FAL is the tip of the iceberg, and actually in the sourcing, the FAL is not the limiting factor. The limiting factor are really on equipment, sometimes large equipment, and mostly because of fragile supply chains lower in the supply structure. So there are plenty of opportunities for companies around the world, and in my view in particular in India, to contribute to debottleneck the supply in the today's environment, which again is not limited by final assembly lines. Actually today at Airbus we are oversized in terms of final assembly line system. And we can't be taking more orders knowing that we are booked. We have 8,600 planes in the backlog today, whereas we are producing, we're targeting 770 this year. So you see that even with a ramp up, we have a backlog that is around 10 years of activity. We are taking orders when we have slots available, but the main challenge is not to feed the backlog in the 30s. The main challenge suppliers to the table that will help us accelerate on the roadmap. That's really the main challenge. I hope I captured the center of your question.
Sir, any target for 2 billion outsourcing from India you want to do? How do you see it growing? It's 2 billion as of now. How do you see it growing? Because you spoke about the supply chain.
For GIFAS, yeah, for the 2 billion is what the French companies of GIFAS are procuring from India, and that's a lot. But it's a good point. It's a lot, but it's decreasing very quickly. I will not be making commitments for an industry association, but as a company, I can tell you that we have doubled at Airbus from 500 million euros to €1 billion between 2019 and 2023. So that gives you an indication of the pace. And I'm taking it 2019 before COVID, so it's not to be confused by the COVID drop. So that's the pace of growth, and we will continue to double every around 5 years, I guess, in the next decade to come. So we're really on that pace. It's a stable pace, and that creates, or that symbolizes the number of opportunities. And again, the 1 billion of Airbus is just half of the 2 billion I was mentioning before. So there's another billion that is also growing.
Sir, last question.
I will take others, maybe we'll be back to you.
Okay.
I want to be respectful to everybody. I'm sorry for that.
So I have a related question, which is when you speak about doubling sourcing from the Indian market, where do you see scope for growth for Airbus?
Again, it's not an Airbus press conference, it's a GIFAS press conference, and we're really happy to take questions on Thursday on the specific case of Airbus, but I will try to take your question on the angle of the industry. Actually, in all the fields I mentioned before. In manufacturing, and I see plenty of opportunities for manufacturing. Maybe I can give an Airbus figure again. In the billion that I mentioned earlier, that we sourced from India in 2023, for the first time, there was more hardware, more equipment to place on a plane or a helicopter than engineering and IT services. So the lines have crossed. And I think they will not cross again. We continue to ramp up faster on equipment, hardware, than on services. But we keep growing nevertheless on services. In final assembly line, we are about to inaugurate the C295 final assembly line. We have announced the H125 final assembly line that is not yet in place and running, so this is growing as well, and will contribute to export for products. And then we have, as I said earlier, engineering. We have training that is really growing at a very fast pace, not triggering a lot of sourcing from France or from Europe, but triggering a lot of activity here. And in that case, we're more investing in the country and sourcing from the country. And MRO is a field of plenty of different things. I see François will need to say something. So we're growing also at a good pace on all of the dimensions of the relationship.
I think one important thing is the goal of our visit today. There will be a B2B session, which will start in a few minutes, where there are about 400 meetings organized between the delegation from the GIFAS and potential Indian suppliers. This happened already 6 years ago when we came for the first time, and it ended up in increasing the purchasing of the French industry coming from India. So we expect that also today there will be additional potential suppliers that will support our industry. And a word about the MRO representing also the tier ones and the equipment manufacturers. The MRO has a huge potential in India, and we are looking, and we will look carefully also at this market. I noticed this morning that it's a key element. It was a key element of the speech of the Minister of Transport, and of course that's something which has to be emphasized coming to India to develop this activity, to increase, of course, the turnaround time, not to send parts around the world, but to repair them, to maintain them in country. That's a key element.
Good afternoon, this is Sanjay Agarwal from World News. My question is about the 400 companies, the meetings which are going to start now. So what are your parameters? How are you going to decide on the Indian part? Because we met a lot of people, the companies were having the bilateral meetings with you people. So they are all large scale companies. As ma'am mentioned that the small scale companies, so they need to, come up, and then how are you going to help them in terms of skilling, skill development or something?
So it's a bit of a general question. We're an industry association, and what we are doing is creating the conditions for success. Creating the conditions for success of our members, which are the French companies I was mentioning before, and also creating the conditions for success for the people who come and visit you. So we're creating the opportunities by organizing these days, and in particular this afternoon, the opportunity to meet the 100 people of GFAS companies that have joined, and people who register and sign and meet, and actually it's full, it's complete. Those 400 meetings are the max we could do, and we have offered the possibility to meet on the first come, first served basis of people who wanted to join. But then there are also Indian association that I mentioned earlier, FICCI, ISPA, Defense, through which the companies that are working here in India can connect with companies in Europe. And that's the way we're heading. We're creating the conditions, and then it's on the private sector to materialize the opportunities, to create the joint ventures, to sign commercial contracts, and not all of them work at the end, by the way. And some work, some don't, but then we try again and fail again and then succeed.
Thank you.
But it's on them. There are more and more hands, so I think we will have difficulty to satisfy everybody.
This is Sakita Saxena from here. Okay. I think the lady was. Sakita Saxena, Editor Aviation and Defense. My question to you is Airbus and Safran and Thales also now going to announce an avionics MRO. How does GFAS plan to involve the Indian MROs, the smaller ones? I'm not talking of the big ones. The big ones all have their plans intact. The smaller ones, which have been a part of the French, systems. And how do you plan to also train? French MROs have the latest technology like AI and machine learning. Is there a plan GFAS has to train the Indian MROs and get them to the standards of the global MRO levels?
So, first, GFAS has members, 485 members, and we have programs to help them mature, grow, develop, get better in different fields, including industrial fields. That's not just for MRO, but that's industry. So it's MRO, manufacturing, assembly. This is a program for GFAS members. Then we have this kind of visit where we create connections between the members on the French side and companies on the Indian side. Then you have the large companies, including my company, which is providing training either in the frame of contracts or in the frame of support to universities. That's something we're doing more and more, by the way, at Airbus, creating chairs in universities or supporting universities for developing training in education. We are not, as GFAS, as of today, offering training services as GFAS to non-French third parties. That's not in our business model, I would say. We are completely focused on our members. But those members create their own activities, their own support, and I can tell you that the large companies are doing it very significantly.
But can you do it along with NSDC, the National Skills Development Corporation?
It's not the purpose of GFAS to serve other companies than the members. And believe me, that's already those members are demanding but we like to create opportunities beyond the French ecosystem, and that's what we are doing. We have some more close cooperation with other associations, mainly the BDI in Germany and the ADS in the UK, where we are bundling activities and sort of synergizing what we are doing. We are growing our relationship with FICCI. That was the purpose of the document we signed today. And maybe FICCI will be able to develop, to help companies here in India to also grow in those dimensions and develop. And that's the kind of thing we are happy to do, association to association.
Just a small question, please.
I'm sorry.
Kiran Baranwal from SBI Communications. I would like to refer to the statement of Minister. He said that they are going to get aircraft book, complete rule book, completely revamped, which originates since 1934, with the objective that the airliners will be designed, developed, and manufactured in the country, domestically. What all contributions and how do you perceive as GFAS this development which is likely to take place in India at the civil aviation front?
I'm not sure I understood exactly the same way you described. Still, today, there's no country, even the US, even China, and of course not Europe, that is developing and producing an aircraft alone on the commercial side. It's about competitiveness, it's not necessarily about sovereignty on commercial aircraft. At Airbus, we procure most of our engines from the US. The Americans are buying a lot of equipment from Europe, and you see those large OEMs, tier ones in Europe, like Safran, like Thales, like others, supplying to the US, and that's the same with China. So it's a global ecosystem that today could not be competitive, company by company, without being global, because you have very few companies in the world that are very competitive in one field, and they're not in the same country. So what we see is India, through its development, being more and more part of the supply chain, of the equipment manufacturers. We see that we have now the final assembly line of the C295, an industrialization, a full industrialization of an airplane that is for military use, but it's commercial technology to a large extent. So that's the way to be part of that global game. But commercial is very global. Defense is different. On defense, you really want to be sovereign, and the sovereignty takes a much bigger importance versus the competitiveness, because it's defense and security, and you want to be able to do it on your own. So the business models for defense, security, and for commercial, civil, are, at least in aviation, the field that we're here for, are quite different.
Hi sir, Mihir from me. As part of your trip, I'm sure you're meeting people in the government, the Prime Minister, etc. When you meet them, is there a wish list that you have that help your member companies to invest in India in a much better manner, so that because there are a lot of problems as a country we face. Is there a wish list that you have from your member companies that you would like to present to the government of India?
Actually, when we're speaking to governmental bodies, we're sharing things very similar to what we're sharing here. We're explaining what is important, where we want to go, where we think we can help, what kind of interest we have in the country. Of course, we're discussing the large projects, but we're also hearing from the large projects which are ongoing in the country, or the aspiration, and keeping in touch and being here with GFAS is also an action of previous discussion we had on how to foster the cooperation, bring more French, European companies in India, and help Indian companies to be a better part, a growing part of the ecosystem. That's the kind of discussion we have, and then we check where we are on the way. Obviously, with governmental officials, we're speaking also about the defense programs, because they are really important for both sides. And I'm sure I will be updating on the progress we're making on the C295 or on the AW and There's no hidden list that we take from the pocket that is not something that is quite known by everyone. These are priorities, we know the priorities, we're discussing the priorities, and we're trying to make sure we're fast and efficient on the way.
We take a very quick last question because it's time now to complete first.
I think all my learned friends have asked all the questions that I'm going to ask, but I just had one question. Did you have a meeting with the other government leaders in the government today, apart from the civil aviation minister? Did you meet the Prime Minister or the Defence Minister of India? And what are the...
I never comment on my meeting with officials, and they do if they want. And I don't comment either on the meetings with our customers, these are private discussions. Now, political leaders and officials might have different priorities, agendas, desires. If they want to communicate, I'm happy to do it. There's nothing that I do that is secret, but still I respect the expectation of the other side. So I will be meeting some of them, and if they want, if they think it's useful, they will communicate. I think most of the time they do. So you'll know it.
Can I ask a question?
I think some people wanted to ask questions and I've not been.
Are there some leasing
I'm
companies?
sorry, I've been trying to give the mic to people who have not in the opportunity.
I have
to ask
one question and the
You can come back on Thursday.
Yeah, I
No,
think
no,
it's
it's on
better to
GFAS.
come on Thursday since Guillaume has got some more meetings.
No more, we stop here or we take one last?
One last.
One last thing.
So,
I mean, I just want to know if they are leasing companies or not.
I want to be sure I can address questions to as much as I can.
You spoke about two FLs, final assembly lines. Any thoughts on transfer of technology to India?
I know what you mean by transfer of technology. Today, when companies are working with each other, when you do training, when you place some subsidiaries in the country and you transfer your processes to produce parts, when we are teaching in universities, it's transfer of know-how, of...
No, that's transfer of knowledge. I'm talking about transfer of technology. Like, suppose if in future you plan a final assembly line for the civil airplanes in India, at that point of time, have you ever thought of transfer of technology to the Indian?
How would you call the C295 final assembly line? 11,000 parts, all the processes to build a